A few weeks ago, I was very, very sick. I went to the emergency department because I suspected I had sepsis. They did some basic blood work and they nearly sent me home despite being very, very sick. It was a long fiasco, but eventually they did agree to admit me to the hospital. When the blood cultures were resulted, they showed I had an infection in my bloodstream. I am so happy I did not go home and stayed in the hospital because this was, in fact, sepsis. I was given medicine while in the hospital. They were giving me IV medicine. I was sent home with 2 weeks of IV medicine, and I was told I was supposed to find my own follow up care. It's been quite an ordeal trying to find a doctor that will follow up this infection. In the end, I did find a nurse who works at an infectious disease doctor's clinic, and she's about 5.5 to 6 hours away from me. Last week, I went to see her and she agreed to restart me on the IV medicine. Unfortunately, I was not able to get the IV medicine in time, and there was a 1 week lapse between the medicine I got at the hospital and the medicine she was prescribing. In that 1 week, I had a dramatic decline in my health. I got so, so sick. So, restarting the medicine, I had regressed a lot. Um, this week, I'm supposed to have another follow up. I am still not doing that well. I'm not even to where I was last week. I'm still really fighting a lot of symptoms. I have massive headaches. I'm extremely tired, and I have just a lot of dizziness and unsteadiness. So, I'm having a telemedicine appointment with the nurse in just a little bit. So, I'm really hoping and praying she will agree to extend the medicine at least another week. I was told this infection takes many weeks, if not months, to cure with medicine. And I'm just hoping they're going to agree to that treatment. So I'm going to go off and do my telemedicine, and I'll give you an update when I get back. Bye. I am all finished with my telemedicine appointment, and I'm a little bit disappointed. I did not talk to the same nurse I talked to last week. This was a new nurse, and she was really not understanding my medical case, and I felt like I was starting all over again. She was very reluctant to give me any more medicine, and I was really frustrated by this because I'm not feeling well at all. And she just said, well, you had a week of medicine and you had some medicine when you're in the hospital. You should be fine. The infection should be gone. And I was saying, no, no, I was told this is a really hard infection to get rid of. I need weeks, if not months. I was told most likely months of medical treatment. The nurse finally agreed to give me some more medicine. Um, she said she would talk to my infusion company to get that sent out. So hopefully there will not be a lapse in the treatment. It'll just continue on from last week. It'll just be an extension of the prescription. The nurse then said I was to have another telemedicine appointment next week. So I'm hoping next week she will agree to give me more medicine, but I'm not real hopeful because she was very, very negative in the appointment, and she just was very resistant to wanting to give me any more medicine. So that's a bit of an update. Bye for now. Hello, it has been a week since I last updated. Today, I had another telemedicine appointment with the infectious disease clinic. I ended up having the same nurse I had last week. Last week, she was very resistant about giving me any more medicine for my infection, and that trend continued today. When I explained to her that I had been on medicine for 2 weeks, off a week, then I've been on medicine now almost another 2 weeks. That was really hard on my body. I really regressed on that 1 week off. And I feel like now I'm just getting back to where I was before I stopped the medicine. Even with this all being explained to her, the nurse said, no, I can't give you any more medicine. You've had enough medicine. If I give you any more medicine, I'll get in trouble. We can't have any more medicine. And I was really confused by this. I am not sure who she's going to get in trouble with because I am sick and I need more medicine. I wouldn't think anybody would get in any trouble for giving medicine to somebody that is sick, but I guess that's not how it works at this infectious disease clinic. With that all said, she said she's not going to give me any more medicine and she wants lab work done. She was going to do some basic lab work. And if that lab work showed that my white blood cell count is elevated, then next week she might give me another week of medicine. I was really frustrated at this point because if you recall, when I was sick with sepsis in the hospital, I had a normal white blood cell count. If I was completely sick with sepsis with a normal white blood cell count, I don't think my white blood cell count is going to be abnormal now. I'm pretty sure it's going to be normal too because I am not sick with sepsis at the moment. So praise God for that. But I still am sick, but it seems like this infection is just not causing my white blood cells to elevate. So I was very disheartened by that. And I tried to explain that to the nurse and she's just like, nope, nope, we have to see what the lab work says, and whatever the lab work says, then that's my only justification for giving you more medicine. So I was really frustrated by that, but if that's what she wants, that's what I'll do. There is another issue because the lab is 45 minutes away. There's no way I can get there tonight. The lab will be closed by the time I get there. So I have to go tomorrow. I explained that the lab is quite far away from me. And then I also asked to make sure that the lab orders get sent to the proper lab. I've had issues with this before, that they just send the lab orders to the general lab and they don't specify the location. And I've had a lot of issues with lab orders never getting to that location. But the nurse assured me that don't worry, we do this all the time. If I just put it into the system, it'll get to the right location. So I hope she's right. But in the meantime, I'm going to try to see my primary care provider. My primary care provider is able to do lab work in her office. So I'm hoping she can just do that lab work that the infectious disease doctor wanted. She's able to do that, and then it gets sent off by a courier to the lab to get processed. That would save me so much time and energy and effort. The primary care provider is only like 5-7 minutes away from here, instead of having to go to the lab, which is 45 minutes away from here. So I'm hoping to do that. Also, I'm hoping that will alleviate the possibility that the lab orders are not at the lab. So I need to go call my medical provider and see if I can get an appointment to see her and go from there. So that's a bit of an update. Bye for now. I was able to go to my primary care provider today and follow up with her regarding the lab work. I explained to the provider that I'm trying to get lab work done, and unfortunately, the lab work is supposed to be done at a laboratory 45 minutes away. I asked if it could be done at her clinic. She agreed to do all the lab work. I also explained I've been very, very sick, and I really need medical treatment for my infection. My treatment is coming to an end. I need to do something because this is a very dangerous infection. Without treatment, I will most likely die. I tried to explain this to the medical provider to get her to understand how urgent I need to get everything done. I also hope that she would agree to treat me. Unfortunately, this kind of backfired. And so in addition to ordering the lab work that the infectious disease doctor ordered, she decided, well, you're still sick, maybe you're septic. So I'm going to order blood cultures. Unfortunately, the blood cultures cannot be done at the clinic. I have to go to the laboratory to get the blood cultures done. Oh, so I was so hoping that I would just be able to avoid going to the laboratory. But it looks like I will have to go to the laboratory to get my lab work done. In addition to all this, the medical provider said, oh, because you're still sick, why don't you just go to the emergency department? They can treat you. And I said, no, that's not how this works. It's an infection, and I'm going to need a couple weeks, maybe a couple months of treatment. I'm not an emergency case. I'm not at imminent risk right now of dying. I prefer not going to the emergency department. Plus, I don't want to be around sick people there. I'm very immunocompromised. I would prefer if we could keep everything out of the emergency department if possible. I tried explaining this to her, but she just says, well, if you're sick, you need to go to the emergency department. So she wrote me a referral to the emergency department. I really don't want to go there. I feel as though that's a waste of time. I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste their time. And I really just don't want to take up a bed in the emergency department and prevent somebody who's having a heart attack or stroke or some other awful life-threatening event from getting medical treatment. I think that's terrible and wrong. I'm not an emergency department case at the moment. So I was very frustrated by that. The medical provider really didn't want to treat me, and she just said, well, if you're sick, go to the emergency department. So I feel like my hands are kind of tied at the moment. I need to go to the lab. I'm going to do that tomorrow. I even explained to her I can't go to the laboratory till tomorrow because the laboratory closes pretty early in the afternoon, and there's no way with traffic and everything that I can get there in time. I'd probably get there right at closing, and it would really be a toss up if they let me get lab work because you have to be registered and in the system before they close. And that probably wouldn't happen if I left right after my appointment at the primary care provider's office. So even with that all being said, I said, I'm not going to go tomorrow to get the lab work, and I'm not going to go to the emergency department until tomorrow. And I thought that would kind of dissuade her from giving me the referral to the emergency department, but it didn't. She just said, okay, after the lab work, go to the emergency department. I can't tell you the frustration. Just, why are you sending me to the emergency department, and why won't you just provide treatment? And she just said, no, you need to go to the emergency department. Whatever they decide, that's how I'm going to treat you. Okay. So I hope it's going to go well, but I don't know. We're gonna see. I'm going to go to the laboratory tomorrow in the emergency department, and I guess hope for the best. So that's a bit of an update. Bye for now. Hello, I am back from getting my lab work done. It was a very good idea for me to go see my primary care provider to get the lab orders. I told the lab assistant, the clinic I was trying to get my lab orders from the infectious disease doctor, and she could not find them in the system. She looked and looked and looked, and she's like, they're not in the system. So thankfully, I have the lab orders from my primary care provider. I was able to get that lab work done. So hopefully when I get those lab results, I should be able to forward those on to my infectious disease clinic so they can take a look at them. Right now, I need to go off to the emergency department because my primary care provider asked that I go to the emergency department. So I need to quickly go off to the emergency department and start that process. All right, we'll see you later. Bye. Hello, I am done from a very long day in the emergency department. It was quite an experience. So let me walk you back. When I got to the emergency department, I was able to be seen by triage pretty quickly. They asked me why I was there. I told them I have this infection. It's in my brain. I had sepsis a couple weeks ago. I was in the hospital. So the woman wrote everything down, looked up my medical chart, and she took my vitals. And she told me, oh, this is nothing really serious. Your vitals are all fine, which they were. They were all fine. They were all completely normal. So I was happy. Hey. Then I went back out into the waiting room, and there were a lot of sick people there. I have no problem with this, that there were a lot of people that went before me. So I waited and waited and waited. I'm not even sure how long I waited. I waited a really, really long time. Finally, the emergency department calmed down, and I think I was the last one out in the emergency department, and they finally saw me. I got taken back to the emergency department. They were busy. They had no room for me, so they just put me on a bed out in a hallway. I really don't like being out in a bed in a hallway. It makes me a little bit nervous, just people bumping into me. I have my ventilator. The ventilator's on the on the bed, and just when the bed gets moved, the ventilator gets moved, and makes me a little bit nervous. But that's where they had me, and I'm not going to complain about that because there were some really, really sick people. So they had me there, and I was waiting and waiting and waiting. A nurse checked in with me and made sure I was okay and asked me why I was there, and I explained I had this infection. It hasn't gone away. I'm still kind of sick. I need to see somebody. My medicine's run out, and I just need more medicine. And the nurse says, why can't your primary care provider do that? And I said, she's the one that sent me here. And he goes, oh, why can't she write you a prescription? I said, I don't know, but she sent me here. And I said, I have a referral. So I showed him the referral, and he said, okay, I'll pass this along to the doctor. I waited a long time. There were so many emergencies, like really urgent, bad, horrible emergencies. There was a code blue. There was somebody that came in with a horrible car accident. I don't even know. I mean, I could just hear people running, and obviously I was out in the hallway, and so I could see people just oh, I was like, this was not a good idea to come to the emergency department. Eventually, the doctor was able to see me, and he was really upset. He's like, why are you here? I said, I was here. I had sepsis. They treated me for the sepsis. My medicine ran out. I need more medicine. I was trying to see somebody for infectious disease. It didn't really work out, and now I'm out of medicine. I'm still quite sick, and I need more medicine. Is it possible to get more medicine? And he goes, you came here to get a prescription refill? I said, well, I guess that's what I came here for. He's like, why can't your primary care provider do that? And I said, well, she's the one that sent me. I gave the referral to your associate. I'm not sure who he was. Somebody, maybe it was a nurse. I'm not sure. That guy that was in here before. I gave it to him. I have another copy. I mean, there's another copy. One, I'll take a look at it. Sid takes a look at it, and he's like, oh, I just don't understand why she sent you here. She can write you a prescription. You don't need to be here. I got so many other patients that are really, I just don't have time for this. He finally just says, what do you want from me? And I said, well, I really need the medicine, but I don't think you're the person to do that because I need probably a couple months of medicine. And he's like, no, just stop right there. I can't do that. I can't give you a couple months of medicine. I'm not infectious disease. You need to see an infectious disease doctor. I said, okay, can you maybe write that down so my primary care provider knows that? She said, whatever happens here, that's what's going to be my path for medicine. She's looking for you for guidance. And he's like, why can't she just make up her own mind? I don't have time for this. So he was just really upset. And I don't blame him. He had so many emergencies, and I was not an emergency. I didn't need to be there. So anyways, the doctor ordered for some blood work to be done. They did the blood work. It was just basic blood work, and my white blood cell count is not elevated, which I knew that. So they just kind of checked in with me at the end and just said, hey, your white blood cell count's not elevated. Go back to your primary care. Have her write you the prescription. If she doesn't want to do that, have her refer you on to infectious disease. So that was my day in the emergency department. It was just very long, and I'm in a lot of pain. Not only does my head hurt, my neck hurt, but I've been having a lot of back issues and back pain, and yeah, I'm really hurting, and I'm waiting for my ride. So I'm hoping my ride comes soon because I want to go to bed really badly. I want to go to bed. So, and then as I was sitting here, I was, where is that? I don't know. Oh, right here. I was like, oh yeah, I have that blood pressure cuff. I don't know. What am I supposed to do with this? Maybe that's a question. What do you guys do with your blood pressure cuff? Do they let you keep it? I don't know. When I was coming out, I was like, oh, I still have this on. Am I supposed to give this back? Is this mine to keep? I don't know. I'm never really sure what to do with them because they tend to leave them on me. And anyways, so I got a souvenir. Wow, isn't that great? A little memento for today's day in the emergency department. So that's a bit of an update. Bye for now. Today, I went to follow up with my primary care provider from my emergency department visit. I was not told when exactly to follow up, but I decided, well, I should follow up with her because I am really, really sick, and today is the last day of my medicine from the infectious disease clinic. And since they are not going to give me any more medicine, I really need to get more medicine, and I'm really on a tight time frame. So I went in to see my primary care provider. I talked with the medical assistant, and she wanted the lab results, and I said those were done at the lab. I don't know if they're resulted yet. You're going to have to check with the lab. She checked with the lab, and unfortunately, because they did blood cultures, those take 5 days, and those have not been resulted. So we're still waiting on those. The medical assistant then wanted to get medical records from the hospital, and she said, oh, this is going to take some time. Come back tomorrow. And I said, oh, I do have a patient login. Can I just do the patient login and just show you what medical records I have on my patient portal chart? And she agreed to that. I was then able to log into my account on a mobile device, and then my patient portal chart was shown to the primary care provider. I guess the primary care provider looked it over. I'm not really sure. I didn't talk to her. Instead, the medical assistant came back and just said, well, we're still waiting on those lab results, and those won't be ready until next week. So come back and follow up next week. I tried explaining to her, I'm really, really sick. And I really wanted to explain to her that the emergency department did not go well. This was not the best course of treatment. I really need medical treatment, but I'm not an emergency. I just need urgent treatment, but not emergency treatment. And furthermore, the emergency department is not someplace you should send somebody if they need weeks, if not months of treatment. Unfortunately, I was never able to talk to the primary care provider. I was just told, well, come back next week, and if you're sick, go to the emergency department. So I was really, really frustrated by that, and just very discouraged. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm still very, very sick, and my medicine ends today, and I'm very, very scared if I go without the medicine, I'm just going to regress like I did before. And there's a big risk that my infection might become resistant to the medicine. If it becomes resistant to the medicine, there is only one other medicine we can use. Wow, that is really scary. And if I don't have treatment, this infection has a 90% mortality rate. So I really need to get this sorted out because literally my life is on the line. So I'm gonna think about it tonight. I'm gonna pray about it. I'm just gonna try to figure out what to do because I'm really lost at the moment. I don't feel like I can wait till next week to get treatment because I feel as though the infection is going to be too advanced and I'm just going to be so much farther behind. And I just don't want any complications from this all. So that's a bit of an update. Bye for now.